Welcome. We're diving into something pretty compelling today. It just landed on our
Yeah,
desks.
Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins.
And this isn't just, another Hunger Games story. Our sources, they're saying it's a really profound journey back.
Right back to the 50th Hunger Games, that infamous Second Quarter Quell.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission today, really, is to unpack what makes this one feel so crucial to the whole Panem universe. We've looked at quite a bit of analysis on this.
Going beyond just the plot, right?
Exactly. We want to see what unique insights it really offers, especially about the early resistance, the psychology of it all.
And the toll it takes, particularly on one, well, iconic character.
Haymitch Abernathy.
A young Haymitch. This is 24 years before Katniss's story even starts.
So you're stepping back into that arena, yeah, but through a completely different lens.
And what's fascinating, and our research really details this, is this specific quell.
The one that doubled the tribute.
Doubled them,
Right.
sending, 48 teenagers in there? Staggering.
Just brutal.
So the sources introduce us to this Haymitch from District 7. He's sharp, rebellious.
Yeah, thrown into this absolute meat grinder.
How does that early exposure start shaping the cynical man we meet later? What do the sources show us there?
Well, our deep dive really highlights how those 50th games were just this crucible for him.
A crucible, good word.
The analyses we read show the raw origins of that cynicism, that trauma. It's not just the physical violence.
No, it can't be.
The sources really emphasize the psychological warfare, the capital's game.
The mind game.
For instance, some materials detail how the arena itself had these psychological traps.
Like what?
Constant environmental shifts, unseen threats, manipulating resources to just, breed paranoia.
Turning them against each other before they even fight.
Exactly. Breaking them mentally. And that's where you see what survival really cost him. Surviving, but losing almost everything else.
That psychological angle is so key. Our research really underscores that. It wasn't just about staying alive physically for Haymitch.
Not at all.
There was this one insight about a specific insidious manipulation by the capital. Something we hadn't fully grasped before reading these sources.
No.
How does his story, through that lens, kind of reframe how horrific the games truly were?
Well, one of the most startling things from the sources is how the capital's strategy for the 50th games seemed focused on, prolonged mental degradation.
Wow, okay. Not just quick kills.
No. We learned about specific hazards that didn't kill directly, but just slowly, methodically wore down sanity.
Forcing desperate choices.
Desperate, often self-destructive choices, yeah. So Haymitch's eventual victory, when you dissect it based on these analyses, wasn't just physical skill.
It was mental fortitude.
Sheer mental fortitude against these invisible forces. And his final act, using the force field.
As a weapon, brilliant but risky.
The sources frame it not just as desperate, but as this maybe accidental exposure of a huge vulnerability in the capital's control system.
Laying groundwork, maybe.
Yeah, groundwork for future rebellion, even if he didn't know it then.
So, beyond Haymitch's personal story, the sources really push that this isn't just a prequel.
No, it's bigger.
It's about power, rebellion, that little spark of resistance. What specific things point to those early cracks in capital control?
Well, this deep dive shows how President Snow's increasing cruelty, his political games back then.
Yeah.
Far from cementing his power, it actually, maybe inadvertently, sowed seeds of dissent.
Interesting. How so?
Some sources argue that doubling the tributes, that act itself, it amplified the suffering that would eventually fuel the big rebellion. You see subtle reactions in the districts,
An undercurrent.
a growing undercurrent of defiance. And Haymitch's victory, especially how audacious it was, it kind of lit a match, accidentally or not.
So it expands the whole universe, adds layers.
Emotional depth, political complexity, yeah. It reframes what we thought we knew about victors, about hope, and its real cost.
And helps us understand the mentor Haymitch became, shaped by that awful experience.
Absolutely. The lessons learned in that arena informed everything he did later.
So the takeaway then?
The takeaway for you, based on everything we've looked at, is that Sunrise on the Reaping is this stark reminder.
That even in the darkest system,
Even systems designed to crush hope, yeah, individual acts of defiance, they might seem small, even futile at the time.
but they ripple outwards.
They can lay those foundational cracks for something much, much bigger down the line.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How much of the future, maybe even our own lives, is forged in those unseen battles of the past?
Those moments of defiance.
Yeah. Definitely something to mull over as you consider the legacy of the 50th Games and Haymitch's part in it.